Look at this. The foundation of life on earth, the blessing. But when you zoom out, this exact same water becomes the ultimate geopolitical weapon.
पानी और खून भी एक साथ नहीं बह सकते।
एक बूंद भी तुम पाकिस्तान से छीन नहीं सकते।
वहाँ पसीना छूट रहा है।
For nearly 8 decades, we've been told a very specific narrative about the rivalry between India and Pakistan. We were told that it is a conflict about religion.
We want the division of India into Hindustan and Pakistan because that is the only practical solution which will secure freedom for both Hindus and Muslims.
We are told it is about historical hatred, about ideologies and lines drawn by the British in 1947. But if you strip away the political speeches and the propaganda, you are left with one absolute truth of geography.
Rising in the Himalayas, the Indus flows on through the northern plains to become, with its 5 tributaries, one of the world's greatest river systems. For some 10 years, the use of its waters has been the cause of bitter dispute between India and Pakistan.
This is the Indus River system. More than 200 million people in Pakistan are alive today solely because of where this water flows from. But there's a massive geographical flaw in their lifeline for Pakistan. All the rivers in this system, the ones Pakistan simply cannot survive without, are not born in Pakistan. They flow down from the high mountains directly through the territory that India controls. That is the pinpoint reality of their anxiety. It is about physical survival. In 1960, India made the most optimistic diplomatic wager in modern history. Some say that our move was so optimistic that it was almost naive. We took our greatest geographic weapon, that is the control of the Indus River system, and we voluntarily gave it away. We handed over 80% of this river system's water to Pakistan in one of the most generous water treaties signed by an upper riparian state in human history.
The Indus Water Treaty, the two countries showed the world how to cooperate over water.
We assumed that if we guaranteed their physical survival, we would permanently end the rivalry and they would stop attacking us. We assumed that the Pakistani state wanted the same rational things that the Indians wanted. Basically, economic growth, stability, ending poverty. We traded our water to buy their rationality. And it was a spectacular failure. To understand why India made this ultimate bet and why 65 years later we are finally preparing to turn the tap off, you have to look at this map, not as a piece of politics, but as a living body. To understand the psychology of this treaty, we have to go back to a specific day, April 1st, 1948. The ink on the partition lines was barely dry. The summer heat was setting in. And on that morning, the East Punjab government in India shut off the water flowing into the Dipalpur Canal and the main branches of the Upper Bari Doab. That was because the West Punjab government in Pakistan did not pay the water charges that they were supposed to pay to the upper riparian state, which is Indian Punjab. By the way, seigniorage-like charges by nations for a foreigner using their territory or resources is normal. For example, overfly rights. If a foreign airline flying over another country's territory pays for that, that's how it works, overfly rights. Or Pakistan charged the US when America transported military equipment through Pakistan to Afghanistan during the Afghan-US war. So, an upper riparian state charging for infrastructure and management to a lower riparian state is also quite normal. But Pakistan, being Pakistan, did not pay the state of Indian Punjab, and Indian Punjabis stopped the water. In the city of Lahore, the taps ran dry. Across millions of acres of agricultural land in newly formed Pakistan, the water simply vanished. When the water was finally restored, archival reports describe thousands of people in Pakistan rushing to the canal banks, weeping just to watch the water flow again. That moment proved exactly who held the ultimate power over the subcontinent. We had our hands firmly on their throat. And then we decided to be generous with Pakistan. Today, it has become a common narrative to look back at what happened next and call it a massive Himalayan blunder. People argue that the Indian leadership of that time was naive, that we gave away the majority of our river system to a hostile neighbor and got absolutely nothing in return. Logically, why would a larger, more powerful nation simply give away the exact resource its adversary desperately needs, with no money being charged at all, no demand for any reciprocity from Pakistan? But it wasn't naivety, it was a gamble. The Indian leadership, mediated by the World Bank at that time, operated on a specific assumption that Pakistan wants Kashmir primarily because it fears India will use Kashmir to cut off its water. If we remove that fear by guaranteeing the water through an ironclad international treaty, then we remove the fundamental reason to fight each other. Then we can both have peace and concentrate on the fight that truly matters, ending poverty. This was the assumption that the Indian leadership of that time made. So on September 19, 1960, the rivers were divided. The three eastern rivers to India and the three massive western rivers to Pakistan. But here is a historical detail that is often forgotten. India didn't just give them the waters of the Indus River system, but as part of the treaty, India agreed to pay a fixed sum of over 62 million pounds to Pakistan to help them build their own replacement dams like the massive Mangla and Tarbela dams. Let that sink in. We gave our greatest adversary 80% of the Indus River system, and then we helped pay for their infrastructure to use that water. We thought we were participating in a massive global engineering project for peace. But look at what happened next. The 1965 war, then 1971, then the brutal proxy war in Kashmir starting in the late 1980s, then Kargil in 1999, and then decades of cross-border terrorism, 26/11, Uri, Pulwama. Through all of this blood, consider the staggering irony taking place on the borders. While Indian soldiers were fighting and bleeding to defend our territory from Pakistani aggression, even at the height of the Kargil war, when regular Pakistani soldiers disguised as militants were occupying our peaks, India never stopped the water, not once. Through 65 years of unrelenting conflict, we kept our side of the bargain with strict civilizational discipline. क्योंकि भाई हम तो अच्छे लोग हैं. While the Pakistani establishment repeatedly broke its commitments to India. The entire premise of the 1960 bet that Pakistan would act as a rational state if its survival was guaranteed collapsed entirely. So who's the irrational actor here? When we talk about this, it is crucial to separate the ordinary people of Pakistan from the Pakistani military and the terror establishment. It is the establishment that acts irrationally. In fact, if you look at how this precious water is managed internally within Pakistan, the tragedy becomes even darker. The water that India so generously allows to flow does not reach every Pakistani equally. Upstream, the political and military elite in Pakistani Punjab, they drink first, taking the lion's share of the rivers for their massive feudal agricultural kingdoms. By the time the Indus reaches Sindh, at the tail end of the river system, it is frequently reduced to a trickle. The Indus Delta, which meets the Arabian Sea, is literally collapsing into salt flats. Many have said that Pakistan is basically a Punjabi empire where the Sindhis, Balochis and Pathans are brutally exploited and oppressed. Our thesis was simple. India bet on rationality from Pakistan. We backed that bet with 65 years of extraordinary, unmatched patience and generosity. And we were proven wrong. If guaranteeing the water never bought peace, there is absolutely no logical reason to continue that generosity. In April 2025, after the Pahalgam terror attack, the message was finally delivered. The treaty was kept in abeyance. The era of unilateral generosity is over until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably abjures cross-border terrorism.
खून और पानी एक साथ नहीं बहे। अब देशवासियों को भली भांति पता चला है कि सिंधु का समझौता कितना अन्यायपूर्ण है, कितना एक तरफा है। भारत से निकलती नदियों का पानी दुश्मनों के खेत को सींच रहा है।
And there is one monumental difference between 1960 today. In 1960, we didn't have the capacity to stop the water even if we wanted to. Look at what is happening right now around the border regions. India is rapidly completing the Shahpurkandi Dam project. We are working on the Uj multi-purpose project and the Ravi Bias link. For decades, we allowed our own legally allocated water to flow unutilized into Pakistan. Not anymore. We are building the dams, the tunnels and the canals to harness every single drop of water that belongs to us. And we now have the engineering might to restrict the western rivers if required. We have the money to invest in the massive projects required to divert the river waters to Indian Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan. The electricity generated from these dams will make Kashmir a rich union territory. The tap is now firmly in our hands. Through everything we have discussed in this episode, there is one fundamental truth that needs to be repeated until it is understood. It is not about the Pakistani people. We do not want to hurt them. The reality has always been about the deeply irrational behavior of the Pakistani military establishment that needed a perpetual enemy. Think about it. When an elite establishment's entire grip on power and their entire wealth relies on selling the fear of India to their own citizens, then peace is a threat. If the water dispute is solved, if the borders are quiet, they lose their relevance. They needed the conflict to justify their existence and their wealth. In our civilizational ethos, we value Kshama, forgiveness and patience. But Kshama can never be endlessly given. Remember the story about Lord Krishna and Shishupal. Lord Krishna had sworn that he would forgive 100 sins of Shishupal. When Shishupal committed the 101st sin, Lord Krishna unleashed the Sudarshan Chakra. We gave an adversarial state everything they needed to build a prosperous future. As we say, patience and forgiveness is a virtue. But in the grand arc of history, patience and forgiveness without boundaries is no longer a virtue, it is self-harm. We have finally recognized the boundary. So the diplomatic bet has been called off. Let's see what happens.